Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of On Point. Today we have a great show as usual. We have our great panelists. With me are my co-host Jimmy Eastman from the nation's capital, Washington, D.C., and our special guest, Mr. Ben Kofa-Fanier. Ben, you are the guest. How are you doing? How's the family? And where are you?
Well, I am doing fine. I want to say thank you to Focus on Liberia. Thank you to you, Mr. Gayman, Mr. Eastman. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to every Liberian hearing the sound of my voice. I'm in the great state of Washington. I'm based in Seattle. I'm happy to be here to discuss everything and anything Liberia. And this show has been a great avenue where we can have civil dialogue. So I'm happy to be here today, and I look forward to discussing the issue. And thank you for inviting me.
Thank you very much. Mr. Eastman from the nation's capital, how are you and how's your family?
Mr. Gilman and Mr. Finn, from the nation's capital, we send you our greetings. We hope that are typical of our broadcast, that this show helps to bring reason to the things that are going on in our country, the current affairs, and also to offer suggestions on how we may remedy or how we could improve it. But most importantly, to conscientize our people about what's going on, providing an independent and biased look at each of the topics. So I'm glad to be here, and thank you for the invitation.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jerome Gayman. I'm the host here. One of the things we're going to be looking at, objectively, we have folks here who have their own opinion, and opinions expressed on this show are our own and not that of Focus on Liberia, our parent company. Obviously, we have a lot of issues in Liberia, a lot of hot political issues. The president was in town, diplomatic arrests, rights being subsidized. We have a potpourri of topics that we're going to be discussing. I think we are well equipped to discuss those issues. Mr. Eastman, you are the diplomat here. So talk to me about the UN General Assembly, the president, and his delegation.
Excellent. So this session that they have a yearly session, the UN General Assembly, where all member nations are invited to come and almost provide a status update about their countries. It's an opportunity for the heads of states to touch on their successes, to touch on issues that have, come into full focus within their countries, to also meet and greet with the objective of signing or coming to various agreements. You will notice that just the other day, Liberia and Jamaica signed a bilateral agreement, and one with Kyrgyzstan. So these are great opportunities for diplomats, heads of states, to come together, forge ties, take advantage of the close proximity to each other, and promote various economic and business ties. Also, we've heard some of the best speeches spoken at these conferences that conscientizes the world about some issues affecting children, affecting youth, affecting climate change. All this is a stage to talk about what's going on in our world and how we may address it. And traditionally, Liberia was a signing member to the UN Charter, and we've always graced this occasion honorably, and I sought the opportunity to convey our opinion. Some of these opinions have been fiery. Notably, one of the last addresses Tolbert gave was scathing in some respects. So as much as this is a regular guard assembly, this is a major event and is a major platform and opportunity to put forth one's opinions and thoughts and direction of the country.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kofa, a fan. I think you, as a presidential aspirant and someone who is a policy hawk, we call them. Talk to me about the delegation, the president, the optics, and the success and failures of this the president's trip to the United States.
Well, I want to say thank you for all the accolades you gave me, but I also want to speak from the standpoint as an ex-United Nations employee. I'll be honest with you. I gotta be frank here. I don't mince words. I think the United Nations has lost its, its importance. What do I mean by that? With life, with the human condition, everything is constantly experiencing change. The UN seems to be stuck in its ways, very stuck. You know what happened? The last few days, for me, it amounts to what I would call a useless ritual. I'm speaking to you guys as an ex-United Nations employee. Now, I don't get this. I really don't get it. Why do we meet every year? My good friend said, to sign bilateral agreements. We have ambassador posted there. We have an ambassador that is being paid. That is his job. We have a United Nations mission specifically designated to represent the interests of Liberia there. Let's take UP 12 years. Now let's add, we have 4 years. Who can tell me one of the derived benefits from attending this thing? What I see is that it has amounted to a ritual. We just do it because there is some kind of a social need to do it. I think the importance of it has been lost. So for me, when I assess it, I would like the ambassador of Liberia that is accredited to the United Nations to ably represent Liberia and send a detailed report to Monrovia. But I don't think Liberia gains anything by attending this thing. That is my own view, because I think there is a associated cost. When folks leave Liberia, they have per diem, they have all kinds of, we spend to bring these people here. And I don't see the derived gains. So I think it amounts to a ritual. And I think we need to change how we get ourselves involved by assigning the Liberia ambassador accredited to the United Nations to attend this thing and file a detailed report to Monrovia. That's how I see it. Thank you.
Great. Mr. Dualo, welcome to the new edition of Focus on Liberia's On Point. One thing I like about you is that when I give you 2 minutes, you are very succinct. That tells me you are a man of a top caliber. You say a lot in few words, even though you are often wrong, but it's all right. We like you. We claim you. Mr. Dualo, talk to me. What did you make?
You're mute.
Okay. He said we should keep going. Okay. Mr. Isma here. When we are talking about, you've been part of major corporations, even churches, conventions. When we meet at the general convention or the annual conference, this is where all the heavyweights, those who have the power to appoint, those who have power to approve, those who have power to make decisions, this is where they come and make their final decisions. For instance, the president keeps striking this point about global warming and the carbon emissions. That countries, small countries like Liberia, that contribute a lot to the world in carbon emission and emits very little when the benefits have been ushered in, have been divided in the world. The countries that contribute more to the safety of the world, they get crumbs. And he keeps telling them that the UN needs to reapportion the redistribution of national wealth based on natural resources. I thought that was a very key point, Mr. Eastman.
Yeah, but let's kind of look at what is the UN General Assembly. You know, there are other major bodies of the UN. That's the Security Council, and the Economic and Social Council, the Secretariat, the International Court of Justice. But the General Assembly is the only body that everybody is represented, all members. Now, there have been talk, just like Mr. Finn alluded to, there have been talk in making this body more functional, making it, and to do that, maybe making it have a more, prosecute a more role in the affecting justice around the world, or trials, and having more decision made by this body. But largely, it's those other bodies, the Security Council and whatnot, have way more power than this body has, and they are looking into revitalizing the body now, so that it would be more functional. Like this year, the key focus was COVID and the effect of COVID around the world. That was one of the key topics for this year. But largely, the reason why the body has not had its importance is because donor nations, strong nations like the United States, like the West Germany, like Russia, they play a heavy hand in the decisions that are made. So largely, they have not given enough power to these bodies to be more effective to this body. And this is what we're looking into now, giving the body more powers to execute, make decisions on issues of the world. But right now, as it largely is, it's the Security Council that has more say in what goes on in the world.
Yeah, but Mr. Fan, real quick here, we have everybody, whether it is the Baptist Convention, the African Methodist Convention, the General Conference is the higher decision-making body of any organization. If you go to the political organization, they will tell you the how they call it, your political convention is where decisions are made. So the United Nations, this is where decisions are made. This is where decisions are made. This is where everybody. We have no feedback from somebody, gentlemen. I think it's Dualo. So here we are, Mr. Pham. Let's talk about the delegation itself. Let's talk about the speech. Let's talk about what is in the speech. What is the delegation made of? Because there were a lot of folks saying the president should come alone. He should not bring delegation. He should not bring people with him. But this is not how policy works. Talk to me.
Yeah, I think you raised an important point. I want to go back on that first before I move ahead. You talk about the carbon emissions. You see, the international order is dominated by the stronger and more industrialized nations. Just like what you said. Africa, we give out far lesser emissions than Europe and America. We give out far less. But you see, these international organizations, as compared to these, to Europe and North America, they emphasize what you call sovereignty. Their businesses, their industry, they are more important than the international order. So they will do whatever they have to do, whatever they have to do to protect their national interest. Let me just say one thing here. As we speak right now today, we have a leader of Liberia who is in jail by the ICC. He was sent to jail. But now hear this: Russia, America, China, they are not signatory to the ICC. You can't try any of them in the War Crimes Code. You see, there are lots of things that for me who work there, I know that the United Nations is broken, it's unsalvageable. Just like we had like what we call the League of Nations. Reform will not solve it. It needs to be totally reorganized. We need something new. So and what you said is right. They will demand that we do more in terms of carbon emissions, while we gave out less emissions and they gave out more. Okay, then now to come to your next point. I said this from the onset. I do not think it is wise for Liberia to annually attend the United Nations Assembly. For me, personally, I think it's a waste of meager resources. I will delegate that responsibility to the Liberian ambassador that is at the United Nations that we are paying. It's a permanent ambassador there to ably represent Liberia. And after everything has occurred, send a duty report to Monrovia. Because I will say this, you see, when we come there, like the last 10 year plus, Ellen been there every time. George Weah has been. What have we benefited from it? I mean, let somebody tell me. We benefited nothing. It's just a ritual. We don't gain nothing from it. So I think we should not waste our resources. We should rather redirect them to something that will benefit Liberia. Right now, as we speak, there is rice shortage in Liberia, but we are paying for a group of people to come to the United Nations.
We are coming to that. We have exhausted a lot of time here. Let's go to number 2. I know we want to get to that. Mr. Eastman, there was a debate prior to us coming here that says we were debating about. Some say Liberia's morality has been destroyed. Some say we are now in a society devoid of morality.
Dualo want to come in?
Oh, Dualo, you okay now? You still muted?
Yeah, I'm absolutely okay.
Okay, great.
I'm absolutely okay. Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Now let me start you off on the second one here because you keep. We basically would do the best we can today to do this within an hour and a half because another show comes on. So the second thing on here is, prior to us coming on, there was a heated debate between some of us here that we're talking about the moral fabric of Liberia being broken. And there's another group, another school of thought that I come from, that Liberia have never had a moral compass from the very get-go. So here we are now our representatives. And obviously we got to make it clear here, just like we do everywhere else. You are proven innocent until proven guilty. We are holding these guys responsible because they have brought some disrepute on our country. Whether they are guilty or not, they should not have been in that position. That doesn't mean we are saying that they are guilty. But here we are. We have Liberian representatives. We are all ambassadors of Liberia. The reputation of our country, of our family, of ourselves is on the line. And here we have, I think, 2 diplomats or 2 employees of the Liberian government in South Korea being arrested for sexual improprieties. We are not saying they are guilty. We want to make this clear. But just on its surface, to me, in the opinion of public opinion, they are guilty. What says the?
Okay, Mr. Gamey, I'm going to say this. I agree with Ben when he talked about having our president come to the United Nations all the time. We have a permanent representative here in the U.S. He or she can attend that meeting for us. Because, listen, whenever Liberia comes to the United Nations, nobody's listening to these third world countries. So waste of meager resources. He's absolutely right. And I'm going to say that what says the, and I want to tell you, Mr. Gamey, we did have a moral fabric in Liberia before the war. It may not have been to the level that you wanted, but there was some stability or some semblance of morality in the country to some degree. Now, you would argue that in the governmental space, there were some people who were unscrupulous to a higher degree. I would see that point, but we talk about on the local level, people have the culture, the custom, the traditions they were following in to some degree. Right now, it's entirely broken down. And I really believe it's being further exacerbated by some of the decisions that President Weah has made. But let me say to the issue in South Korea before I give it to my brother. Look, President Weah is responsible for the actions of his agents. You take people. There was a permanent representative, I believe, in the person of R.C. Jackson at this location. This man had some experience. He was there. You remove this man literally illegally, and you put people there who have absolutely no diplomatic experience. They don't understand who they represent, that they represent the entire country. I've been to South Korea a few times. In fact, I did some training there while I was in the military. And I understand how these people's society work to some degree. For these guys to believe that they can go to such a conservative society, that you start following teenage girls, the same thing we do in Liberia. I think it's bad for the country, but then again, I blame President Weah because he's not vetting his people right. He's taking Jaja and Muya and sending them to crucial positions. And I think the government is to blame for this.
Mr. Dualu, obviously you are in opposition. You will say things. First of all, you are wrong on 2 points. President Weah did not remove Mr. Jackson. Mr. Jackson was appointed to the St. James Port in London. We are talking about South Korea, so you are kind of crisscross here. Secondly, we are all responsible for our own behavior when we are sent somewhere. So if the gentleman commits a crime, the crime cannot be transferable to the president. He committed a crime. He has to bear the full brunt of the law. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Kofa.
Yes, you see,
not Benjamin, not transferable, but responsibility is on the president.
I really like your onset. You talk about the moral fabric. What I want to say is, Martin Luther King once said that peace is not the absence of war, but the presence of justice. What do I mean by that? In Liberia, when people talk about morality, it has some undertone of religion. What has been absent in Liberia, based on my own viewpoint, is the lack of enforcement of laws. The lack of enforcement. We have every law on the book, the same laws in America. We literally copied American law and took it to Liberia. The lack of enforcement and the lack of the will to do what is right. I mean, like my good friend said, people in Liberia, statutory rape law is in Liberia now as we speak, statutory rape. But people sleep with underage girls in Liberia. So some people think it is okay, even though they know that it's illegal. You see, those men, I don't know what they did. We don't want to judge them. But for me, the way I have been trained, the way I've worked, when things like this happen, we take actions in terms of preventing it from happening again. So what I wrote about yesterday, and I want to share with you guys, is we need to change the code of conduct to kind of put some information on people who will represent Liberia outside Liberia in terms of how they behave, what I call acceptable form of behaviors. Let me say this, for me, where I work, even outside of my work, they always tell me you represent management. I can't afford to get arrested. I cannot afford that. So even outside of work, in my daily life, I have to conduct myself in an acceptable way. So we need to also tell these people that no, they are acceptable conduct when you go and represent the government of Liberia. You cannot go and get involved in any form of crime. You cannot go and solicit prostitutes. We have to make them know that. So in case things like this happen, we can hold them accountable. Right now, as it stands, Liberia have no way to hold these people accountable. Maybe we have to make up something, but we have to have rules, for all these things. So I would just say that sense of non-existence of laws in Liberia somehow influence us when we leave Liberia, and this has to force us to enforce our laws in Liberia. Thank you.
I'd like to chime in there.
Mr. Eastman, just before you come in, let me give you a quick example. When we talk about, for those of us who from the school of thought that morality have never been here from the get-go, recently there was a young lady that was raped in Monrovia, and the gentleman was arrested. And the women group went to the courts to prevail upon the judge that this guy who did the rape, the case should be withdrawn. And the mother of the raped child was in that group, said they want to discuss it as a family. Another case, there were 7 girls that were kidnapped about several months ago in Carisburg that were taken into the Sunday Society mutilated. And when the police was called, the police said, we have dual law in this country. We cannot go and meddle into the traditional law. So those girls, 7 of them, violated. They were kidnapped. They didn't go into the sandy bushes voluntarily. They were kidnapped from the streets of Carisburg and taken there and kept for 7 months. And the law is saying we cannot go in there because it is a traditional thing. We cannot arrest the Zoe, we cannot arrest the devil, whatever they call them. What they do is there. So here we are. When we talk about the duality of a confused nation from the very, very get-go, how do we enforce, Mr. Dualo, you coming next, Mr. Eastman, address this. How do we enforce our law when we say this law doesn't apply to Zanzan Kawa and his group, where it applies to Dualo and this group, and we can't crisscross? Go ahead.
You know, Mr. Gaiman, I think you've touched on the main problem that is wrong with our country. And for establishing a definition, let's understand what morality is. Like my comrade Ben Finn was talking about, it's not necessarily religious. Morality refers to a set of standards that enable people to live together. Another way of looking at it is principles concerning the distinction between right and wrong, good and bad. It has nothing to do with deism, the existence of a God. Okay? What is good and bad? What is right and wrong? These are our standards, and this is what we live by. Now, these standards can be taught. They're taught by your parents teach you standards, what is good and bad. We had societies, the Sunday and the Poor Bush, they also taught about how to behave in society. However, some of the things they included, like female mutilization, we do not need. But the idea, there was a code of behavior that was taught. The Poor Society, they were taught a behavior. Since 1980, we saw a disruption of law. We saw the overthrow of a government. Before that time, there were people doing some things that were wrong, but we had a stability. People respected the law. There were one or two people who manipulated the law, but people generally in Liberia respected the law. They maintained stability. Around us, the law was enforced by soldiers, by a force. But in Liberia, they didn't need that much enforcement because people respected the law. So we did have it. Now, there were some issues that we should have addressed a few things in our laws to make it more fair and for everybody. One of the things we should have addressed, everybody should have been allowed to vote. Property ownership should have not been a criteria for vote. Education should have been available to everybody. The resources of the country should have been distributed in a way that education is fair for everybody. And some of our own traditional ways of doing things should have to be revisited, whether it is a 200-year-old thing. If the society deems it is not right, then it is not right. If we say there's some people who say female mutilization is all right, involuntary is all right, because this is what we do with our women, and then a large amount of people, we're against it. The whole world has been against it. Now,
Mr. Eastman, real quick, coming back to you, Mr. Dualo. Now we're talking real talk here. Usually you say, and I have heard it from Mr. Fennell too, that the law of the land, the enforceability of the land starts with the top. If the leader of the nation, the guys at the top are not enforcing the law and breaking the law will break down. That's what you are saying. Now let's go back to President Talbot and his behavior of concubism, statutory rape, a whole farm of young women, 13, 12-year-old women that he had better finance. These things that some of us will call morally bankruptcy from the president of the Baptist Convention on the religious end. And then on the civil end, he's the president of the nation, the chief enforcer of the law. So if the president of the nation is molesting little kids, what may you think all his subordinates won't do the same? So you talk about the law here.
Mr. Gibbon, let me make a couple of corrections. You did say we have dual laws in Liberia. That is not true. We do not have dual laws in Liberia. There are customs and traditions. Okay, you guys mute yourself a little bit. I'm getting feedback. I love from one of you guys. Okay, there are customs and traditions in Liberia that the law will respect to an extent. In fact, under our constitution, if any custom or tradition contravenes the constitution, it is null and void. It does not exist. So the police can actually go into the sandy bush and take out somebody if they are breaking statutory law under our constitution. So what you say is not true, Mr. Gayman. But I'll go back to Mr. Tolbert. Look, those things happen. My mother's father was a tax collector out of the Mississippi territory, at the time, Sando territory. Probably had like 16 different wives. Okay, my grandfather up in River says they had so many things. Those were things that happened before, and I'm not justifying it. These are bad customs and tradition, but we are evolving now to the point where we have laws on the books where the current government. I'm using the current government because if we keep going back to the old, we don't get to move forward. You have the mandate now to improve these laws, or at least enforce these laws. Now, there are reports that President Weah has to sleep with you before he gave you a job from the chairman of the CDC. Listen.
No, that is innuendo. Don't talk those things here that you don't have facts. We're not here to discuss.
I'm quoting the chairman. Don't interrupt me now. Don't interrupt me. I'm quoting the chairman of the CDC. And there are reports, there are recordings from girls arguing over President Weah. He's setting the pace in the country. He's the leader. You know that song? Follow the leader, leader, leader. What is happening in Liberia with the promiscuity and all the? It's being encouraged by the sitting administration that is just completely flagrant about the issue in Liberia. So how are people going to take it seriously when the leadership itself is not taking the issue seriously on little girls? So this is where the issue is coming from.
So you agree with me that it has been customary in our society, even in the cultural sense, from time immemorial, that my mother was given to my father at the age of maybe 12, directly from the Sending book.
It was customary, correct? Right. Yeah, I agree with that.
So we are talking about the civilized, so-called civilized society or the modern world. Mr. Fan, you can come in here. That we're supposed to tell these folks that listen, this is wrong. We shouldn't do it. We came in and then we exacerbated it. We took it to another level, Mr. Fanel.
Yeah, you see, I mean, I like you guys going. I'm back and forth with this, but I look at it from a law enforcement perspective. If somebody breaks the law, he must be held accountable. I mean, like the last few weeks, we have the LACC. They investigated the National Election Commissioner chairman. They said, she gave contracts illegally to her two brothers.
Correct.
And she's still there. I've written posts about it until I'm tired. The LSCC wrote about the agriculture minister. They said she and 5 of her teammates, they are corrupt, but she's still the agriculture minister. So I think Dwalu has a point in terms of we are not enforcing the laws. We are not. So maybe that has become literally cultural, and that's why these guys, if what they did was true as the report said, thought they could do it somewhere else. Because I will tell you this, I know some people, I've heard people talking, oh, Liberia is sweet, you go to Liberia, you can do whatever you want to do there. You have a little cash, you can sleep with anybody, you do whatever you want to do. And what I'm saying is, we do not enforce our laws, and when we don't enforce our laws, we will experience these things. We just have to enforce a law. Let me get the last point. In Liberia now, you have land sales. Say, for instance, you can buy a land. The next thing you know, 5 guys will come and lay claim to that same land. But let me tell you what hurts me in there. Most time the guy who sold the land goes scot-free, and me and the other guy who bought the land starts fighting. You know, until we say, no, we'll enforce laws. When you sell land, you should be the owner of that land, or else we'll prosecute you. That's like a scam. But just like we're saying here, all of us, we do not enforce our laws. So people have a sense or an aura of, impunity. That's what they're doing, what they are doing. I'm not saying these guys did that. I'm just saying I wish in Liberia we had the capacity or the ability to enforce our laws, to hold people accountable. Look at the country today, my brother. Look at the country today. Almost anything is possible. Anything is possible because we're not enforcing our laws.
This is where I'm coming from when I'm saying we as citizens of the Republic. Just recently, you heard a couple of years ago in the previous administration, and this one doesn't matter what it is. It's just something that we do. That a certain House of Representatives, a rep, impregnated a baby. Well, I would say baby because she was 13. The girl got pregnant. The parents came to the law. The guy and the Sandy people got together, kidnapped the girl, took her to the bushes somewhere, and the same thing we are talking here. The police and the law enforcers said they cannot cross that boundary. I'm saying this because I brought this up in 2003. When I got to Liberia, I spoke with Councillor Brumsky, and he told me that one of the things that were on his agenda if he became president was to get rid of the dual law in our country, that one law will apply to everybody. That if you commit a crime, whether it's in a traditional sense or not, even though it may be written in the Constitution, like Dualo just said, that whatever contravenes the Constitution is null and void, but that has never been in practice. Like you were saying, we got all the laws on the books, but they are never enforced. So here we are, a lawmaker impregnated a baby, then kidnapped the girl, took her to the sandy bush, and the people there, they are shielding him. Same thing just happened. And this time around, we're not talking about Deep Grand Nigeria now. We're talking about Mount Barkley right there. Right there in Monrovia, basically in the capital. Going on the street and kidnapping people's daughters. I think Front Page Africa have an article 2 days ago that the voluntary enrollment in the sandy bush had dropped preteritory, that the folks now they are so desperate. They are kidnapping people now. These are terrible crimes. So this is where we are talking. We're talking about, I think A.B. Williams, the guy who owns the Perspective newspaper, the editor-in-chief. He said the country's foundation is so crooked that whoever comes now will just do a little cosmetic around the edges. But until the thing is totally redone, in honesty, we may be in circle here. And this is what I'm seeing here.
Mr. Gimel,
Mr.
Eastman, do I go ahead?
No, just 10 seconds, Mr. Eastman. That kidnapping issue is a serious issue. My daughter and myself were all the way in her mother's village up in Hindi. My daughter was 11 years old at the time. They were like, oh, they get getting beat now. I had to pull her in the car and sit next to her. I'm not saying they were going to do that, but this is one of the risks we are talking about. Now, I would have burned out Sandy Bush down. That was a whole different story. But we're talking serious issues in the country. Jimmy,
I don't believe in that theory that because the foundation was not properly done, that is why we are where we are. Human beings are fallible. They make mistakes. They are not perfect. So anything they do will not be perfect. No matter what you think they could have done better, it still can be improved. We need to improve upon our standards. One of the things you mentioned, I really appreciate. We are not enforcing. Why? That is the question we need to ask. Why are we not enforcing? I was giving you a long historical account of where the law started breaking down, where people started defying authority. And now it has reached a point after the war where there was no law existed. The war was just whoever the warlord at that time, or the commander or the rebel who had that, or the freedom fighter, or whoever side you fell on, whoever had a gun was the law. So we had no law. No traffic lights were respected. We had no law. Now we have to come back from lawlessness to a law. So we need enforcement. But we still have a perception that some people feel above the law and they manipulate the law to their advantage. And it has, if we do not agree that everybody must obey the law, then we will continue like this, because it's us who have to say we will, even if my brother does this wrong, put him in jail. If my mother does this wrong, put her in jail. We have to agree. Remember, I told you about morality. It is of what is right and wrong between us. And until we say this is wrong and we're going to live by it, it will continue. We know those people who took those girls, for instance, when they rape and they take the little girl, all they have to do is get the little girl just got to get missing. I've seen this with my own eyes.
Yep.
The person is accused of rape. The gender ministry has a whole squad to prosecute. They book the guy, they put him in jail. They just wait until nobody is looking. They take the girl and take her somewhere out of town. She disappears. There's no more case. That is the modus operandi for rape cases there. So what do we do? How do we repair that? How do we address it? If it's no matter who, we have to come and say we will live by it. Until we agree to live by the principles we have established, nothing will change.
Great. Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to On Point, on our parent company here, Focus on Liberia. You have with me our astute brother, Ansu Dualu. We have Mr. Ben Kofa-Finir, outstanding presidential aspirant from the Republic of Liberia 2023. And obviously, our third generation diplomat, Jimmy Eastman, engineer/diplomat in Washington, D.C. Right after this show, we're going to have several other top shows coming up, shows that you would like to be interested in, and hopefully you can call in and participate. Now, let's go to number 3 here. I think, Dualu, you are a student of history, you are a student and a stickler on the Constitution. Here we are saying there's rumor in the area that the United States have accused some Liberian citizens of corruption, and they have placed sanctions on them. And Liberians are saying, irrespective of our Constitution, if you are accused of a crime by the superpower, you should be denied your right to participate in the electoral process. And some of us who are from the Constitution and are saying you are innocent to proving guilty. As long as you are not found guilty, you are still entitled to all your constitutional rights. What is your take on this particular issue?
Mr. Gaiman, when you have a president that plays for the Liberian people business, it becomes a dangerous thing. Don't interrupt me. Let me finish my point. The guys that have been accused by the Americans, they have every right in Liberia to do whatever they want. But I want you to sit back and read what the sanction says. Anybody who does business with these guys could literally be sanctioned. Yes, they can run on a Liberian law, but what is the consequences to the rest of the country? If these guys go ahead and run, you're literally giving the American middle fingers. Okay, saying we're not going to do the. This is what's going to happen to Liberia. The Americans are going to pull their resources out of the country. Yes, they can run, but is this a good thing for Liberia? Why is President Weah delaying the investigation of these guys? He announced it almost over 30 days ago. There is no investigation going. Forward these guys to court so they can clear their names. But what President Weah is doing, he's delaying. He's intentionally delaying. God, can you mute your phone a little bit for me, please? He's intentionally delaying.
Somebody's line is open.
Yes, can you mute, please? He's intentionally delaying so these guys can be able to run during the elections. Look, you can do an investigation in 30 days. 30 days. Forward these guys to court. Let them clear their names. If they clear their name, they can come and run. But they are intentionally delaying this to make sure they can run in these elections. And it shouldn't be that way. Send him to court. President Weah doesn't want to because it benefits him. And another reason too is President Weah, if he realizes if he sends these guys to court, they will also call his name in this court. So he's protecting himself as well. Mr. Gabriel, you on mute.
We're still having the feedback when you are talking. I want everybody to mute when he's talking. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Mr. Dualo, Ben, you got to mute. Mute.
Yeah, you got to mute. You got to mute.
Okay, yeah, the Dualo, go ahead and land.
Yeah, okay. So what I'm trying to say is the reason for the delay is simple. President Weah realizes that he could be implicated. Well, he is implicated already because the guy that's being sanctioned is actually in his office. And if this case goes to court, it can come in the public that President Weah facilitates it as a direct participant in these cases. So he's intentionally not sending these guys to court and make sure they get run. Start taking the Liberian people business seriously. If the American pull their funding, you're going to put our people in more desperate condition. This is exactly what's going to happen. I give it to you guys.
Ben.
Yes, let me disagree with Dualu a little bit. Article 21 of the Liberian Constitution speaks about this kind of issue. This is what I would say though. The sanction that was imposed on this individual, and I'm no fan of all of them, they were based on allegations. This is what I would say. I will wish that the U.S. authorities maybe hand over voluntarily or upon request the pieces of evidence that led to this sanction being imposed. But here you see, I will be honest with you, government of Liberia is stuck in between an egg and a hard place, because we have people under sanction who have been accused of doing certain things that maybe the government don't have the pieces of evidence to prosecute these people. So what I would say, maybe this should be something like two sides should meet and say, well, give us the information which we will use as a basis. But let me tell you this. Government of Liberia erred, because when these guys were suspended from their job, there was an investigation that was promised. But like I said on that day, George Weah gave no timeline, no framework, nothing how this investigation would look like, and even punitive actions, whether after the investigation we submit these people to a court, he didn't say nothing. So it's almost like a confused morass. So I will hope and plead that someone will listen to this show and somehow turn over the information that this sanction was based upon to the authorities in Liberia, or they can request that information so that they can go ahead with the investigation. Because I don't even know, where's the investigation? What are we doing now? I don't even know if the investigation have been, I've been planned, they have started. We don't know anything about that. And I think this is great, but let me say this. No matter what, since these people have not been convicted in a court of law, constitutionally, you cannot bar them from contesting. It is an allegation. We all frown on it. We all know it might be wrong. It might appear bad, but we all have to err on the side of the law, because we have to do what the law says. These people have not been convicted in the court of competent jurisdiction. They have not been convicted. They are accused. Until they can be convicted, I don't think they should be barred. I do not think so. Thank you.
Diplomat, Mr. Eastman, I know this is your area here. You would be the pharaoh here. The woman who actually didn't own this baby said, split the baby in half.
Well, they divided.
And the woman who really had the baby said, no, if you want to kill this baby, just to prove a point, you can let her have the baby. And
have the baby, just spare the baby life.
That's correct.
That is so true. Here's what's going on here. Here's what's going to happen. The Americans put the sanctions on these three individuals. The donor company, if you listen to every American that has talked to us, including the American ambassador, including Linda Greenfield, who came here for this centennial, all of them had told us one thing: that Liberia has to combat corruption. As far as they're concerned, we are not developing we are not making any progress because of corruption in the country. They have come to this conclusion. This is their conclusion after all the analysis, detailed analysis. So this country is not moving anywhere because of corruption. And this could, I'm not just talking about today, but for over a period of time. And they are saying we are not serious about our situation. And so what's going to happen? They will withdraw support from us if we do not address the corruption. This is what the echoes we're hearing. They're about to tell us we're not giving you anything because you're not serious.
Well,
we're not going to
support. Mr. Eastman, let me push back on this because you are terribly wrong on this. I'm looking at the Mediterranean Challenge here. One of the areas that Liberia get constant hallmark on is fighting corruption. And this is from the State Department. So we are talking about the most recent one. And the one that's coming up next, that Liberia have passed all those critical areas, and Liberia will be awarded the next Mediterranean Challenge.
Where your report coming from?
What?
Where is your report?
Do you have a copy? Do you have a copy of the Millennium Challenge?
I don't. I'm not talking about the criteria.
Oh no, but fighting corruption is number one. You just mentioned it. Everybody mentioned it. You said Leonard Greenfield mentioned it. Everybody made that's true. But when you look at the Millennium Challenge, one of the areas that we got a good grade on is fighting corruption. So we are doing well. And the Millennium Challenge that's coming up, I got credible news here. My sources are very credible that we will get the next Millennium Challenge because we have met those critical areas. And I'm telling you this. So anybody who says that is false. And secondly, Liberia is an independent sovereign state. If the United States that is based on law, rules, law, and order, that we all quote on, whose constitution we use in this country. And President Trump is a typical example. The man, you can feel any way you want to feel about him until the law says he is guilty. He is entitled to all his benefits. He has the right to run. He has the right to raise funds until he is found guilty in a competent jurisdiction. That has not happened. That applies to Liberia until these guys, in fact, the ambassador made it clear. He said these people need to be tried, if there's any, by the laws of Liberia. The ambassador made it clear.
Yeah, let me give you five. Let me do 5 seconds, and I give you the comment.
Okay.
Mr. Gilman, you mentioned Liberia is a sovereign nation.
That's correct.
I'm gonna talk like in our Liberian parlance. Your son tell you say he man for himself. He's sovereign. He man for himself. But every day he gotta sleep in your house. He gotta eat your food on the table. He can't feed himself. He can't feed his children unless he asks you for money. Where is the sovereignty?
Well,
where is it?
False comparison.
Let me come in now, Mr. Gaiman.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Gaiman, let me say this to you. First of all, let's not be misleading about how the Millennium Challenge goal works. I want to summarize this for people. Just because Liberia passed a category, it doesn't mean Liberia doing extremely well in that category. Let me explain this. If the average in a category, let's say you're going from 1 to 100, and the top level, the average is 10, and Liberia made 11, Liberia passed.
That's correct.
Even though the Liberia passed, because does that mean Liberia is still corrupt, extremely corrupt, because it's only at 10%, because the average is 10 and Liberia scored 11, Liberia passed. Now, I want to be very clear here. The issue of corruption in Liberia, just because you pass a category, doesn't mean the country is operating successfully. That there are still individuals within the government that can be extremely corrupt, even though they pass that category. Make that clear.
There is no doubt about it. The ambassador made it clear. He says, even in the United States, we got corruption. We got corruption.
But listen. You're comparing apple to bananas. It's not even in the same category.
I hate when you do that. There are corruption everywhere.
No, listen, don't do that. Don't do that.
The ambassador said that.
You are in Florida. Listen. There are corruption everywhere, but let's quantify it. Look, you spoke about sovereignty. This is how let me describe sovereignty. Sovereignty goes from 1 to 10. 1 being your sovereign, but you're on the bottom rung of sovereignty. I'll give you an example. Let's say South Sudan is sovereign, Liberia is sovereign, and let's say France is sovereign, Japan is sovereign. Japan could be at 9, France at 8, Liberia could be at 1 or 2, because we are sovereign, but we are dependently sovereign. So we are not true sovereignty. In fact, do you realize we don't even have control of the entire country? The entire government structure.
That has nothing to do with the law.
Okay,
Ben, go ahead.
I will let Ben come in.
Ben, go ahead.
Yeah, guys. You know, I mean, I really love this show tonight because I'm learning a lot of things from you guys. But this is what I would say, though, guys. Whether we like it or not, there is a culture of impunity in Liberia, and that culture encourages corruption. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf had over almost 200 other reports that recommended people for prosecutions. Most of them are free today. Amaracone, I did post something last week. Amaracone was adjudged to have received $35,000 bribe, including the Justice Minister and the National Investment Commissioner. But nothing happened to him. So this thing about corruption in Liberia, I will tell you guys this. My bottom line is there is an inability to enforce the law. There's a lack of the will to do what is right. As we sit here today, my brothers, all of us sitting on this right now, we have people in Liberia who were involved in very heinous activities. Some people kill other people. They took lives. They're scot-free. They're living free. So we don't have the political will to do what is. We don't have leaders that are prepared to do it. I mean, I will just go on the left end. Prince Johnson's today, he's bragging now he's an ally of George Weah. He's an ally because chances are, they will give me Nimba County. So there is nothing like, we will hold this guy accountable. And not only him, there are other people there who are equally bad people. So it's just a culture of impunity that is kind of backed up by leaders who lack the will to do what is right. We do not enforce our laws, my brother. So until I would say I can lead Liberia, nobody will do it.
Yeah,
but Mr. Gaiman,
enforce the law to the letter.
That's correct.
Because society works when laws are enforced.
Well, Mr.
All
Gaiman,
of us here, I'm telling all of us here, most of my drive on the highway, you will see hundreds of cars driving down. Once you see that one cop car, everybody is driving well. Because we know that if we run foul of the law, we will be pulled over by that cop and there will be consequences for our actions. And just one police car is enough to control thousands of cars driving by. Because we are socialized, we understand that there will be consequences. But in Liberia, nothing. We don't enforce the laws, my brother. So we can beat this thing any way we want. We can blame Ellie.
And Mr. Gaiman, I don't want to add something.
Like the will to do what is right. Thank you.
I wanted to tell you, when you, agree that there's corruption elsewhere, but let me tell you why I'm telling you. I'm not saying I'm guessing. I'm telling you they're about to stop supporting us. And let me tell you why. It's not that there's not corruption everywhere, but we are not advancing. We are not progressing. We are at the same place. I want to give you one common example. The power company, LEC, they've put almost $1 billion in LEC. Till today, we can hardly feed half of Monrovia. I'm not talking about Monrovia environment. Half of Monrovia till today, after $1 billion and 10 years of investment. We're not doing anything. And that is why it's not that the other places don't have corruption, but they see progress. They see zero progress with us.
Mr. Eastman, I live on the Hill. I understand American politics. America is all about interests. It is not about individual. It is not about anything. As long as America has interests in what goes on with our natural resources, our geographical location, Firestone, and all the major corporations that are there, it is based on interest. America has only one thing that is permanent, it's interest. They don't have permanent friends. It may not be Salif, it will not Charles Taylor, it won't be Weah either. They don't have any permanent friends. Those things that America need, they are there. That would be our interest. I'm only saying this to say, here we were, when we're talking about sovereignty, when we talk about a constitutional right, there was another school of thought during the war that says Liberia should go into stewardship. We should become maybe a state or whatever on territorial right be given to the United States. And I think it was Stephen Ali Benson who said he would die, he would fight to his death, but he would never allow that to happen, whether we ate grass or we ate grasshopper. So we are saying there's more to it than the 3 men or the other guys who they may or may not sanction. What we are saying here is we got something to protect here, whether we lose it all or not, but we have our sovereign state, we have our territorial integrity to protect, and we will do that to the death. If America cannot take away their support, we heard someone say they said they were going to take their support from the electoral process. We found out that the United States has not a dime in our electoral process. It's been 100% funded by the Liberian people. So here we are. One thing that we all have to agree on, we will protect our integrity. Now let's go. We may not have time to do number 4, which is the allegation. Well, let's do this because Mr. Fennell wanted to address the real quick, then we'll go to cause and then we'll do to the comments. Mr. Fennell, we are talking about something that you have interest in. Our rice, our staple food in Liberia, is being heavily subsidized. We are talking about, and Mr. Dualo and Mr. Eastman, here we are, the folks who are subsidizing this rice to the tune of about $11 million. The sad thing is that the money is not staying in the country. The money is not going to Liberia. The money is not going to Liberians. I think Mr. Dualo talks about it all the time that if you are going to do business, you want the money to go to the business people and they can choose how to use the money on the ground. But if you're going to give me $11 million and then turn around, buy the right from the American importers here and give us the right, you are not doing us any favor. Talk to me, Mr. Fana, how you as a presidential candidate will discuss that and make sure that they like the $17 billion they put through Liberia, through Ellen, basically, like in the interior, we say you ate the food and you rub the oil around the person's mouth. You gave us all the big money, but all the money came on. Your NGO came and took the money right back where it came from. And Ellen started with this $17 billion on her head, but we know the money didn't actually go there. Almost 2/3 of that money was taken back by the NGOs and the international community. How will you address that and make sure that that money, Liberia becomes self-sufficient and that money goes directly into the hands of Liberians? Mr. Fennell, you're on mute.
Yeah, first thing, I want you to give me some time so I can fully address this. Liberia is being
you got 2 minutes. You
right
got 2
now
minutes. Don't go on the diatribe.
Go ahead.
The Pro agenda for development. Now, I have the Pro planks in my hand right here.
I got a Bible right here. I got a Bible right here.
There are 4 main planks. Governance and transparency, power to the people, sustaining the peace, the economy and jobs. But let me say this. The number 1 item under the 4th planks, the economy and job, is agriculture. Now, my brother, you see, there is one thing when we talk about something, and there's another thing when we take concerted actions in terms of addressing the things we talk about. Now, the government of Liberia listed agriculture as one of its principal initiatives. That means one of the most critical initiatives it wants to help improve the lives of Liberians. And let me give you this. I will go to the proper agenda. This is page 68 of the proper agenda, page number 68, where the government said it plans to increase rice production in Liberia by 56%. That's the government. This is a pro agenda. The government plans to increase rice production. But now look at this. We come to the budget of Liberia. The budget of Liberia, agriculture receives the lowest in terms of financial support. So the government is not practicing what they are preaching. But let me go to the next point. We talk about subsidy. Why is the government subsidizing rice? Why? For me, when I think about this, it's just like systemic corruption. Let me tell you why I say that. This is what they call a consumption subsidy. The government is literally giving monies to importers so that they can reduce the price of rice. So on the market, the actual price of rice is not reflected. $11 million. Couldn't we have invested in our agricultural sector? Couldn't we have empowered our farmers? Couldn't we have started a government farm dedicated just to produce rice? So, this is, it makes no practical sense. As we speak right now, I got a call from Liberia and said there's apparent rice scarcity. And how long are we going to be talking about rice in Liberia? How long? When is somebody going to take the initiative to say, no, let me tell you why this problem is a solvable problem. We have available arable land. We have available manpower. We even have money because we are giving, importers $11 million. We could channel all those resources and maybe initiate a government farms dedicated to rice production. Why are we doing this? For me, it's just wrong, and it goes against even the government pro agenda. This is the pro agenda where they talk about it. This is the pro agenda.
Okay, Mr. Dualo,
Yes.
you are a businessman, and one of the complaints that you have when you were doing your business is the harassment and the inability for the money to stay in the hands of those who have done the initial investment, like you, who put your hard sweat, hard labor on there, and you can't get it. What policy will you suggest that we put in place to make sure that people like you, entrepreneur, people with innovation, excel in the different areas, especially agriculture?
Well, what would be my recommendation? I'll ask people to Google common sense economics for Liberia. I try to wrote it. That's my recommendation. Go through it.
I read part of that.
And I also want you to understand the $11 million. In fact, I wrote another paper called Red Back, Not Tax Breaks. What is happening with it with $11 million? So if you can Google the paper too, it will explain. It's very issue on this res issue. The $11 million is not for rice. I want it to be very clear. This is a election time solution that President Weah is proposing. But Benjamin is entirely right. If President Weah had taken $11 million when he first came into power and strategically put it into rice production, we would have been self-sufficient by now. In 5 years, you can become self-sufficient with rice production in the country. We have the manpower. The manpower in Liberia is so cheap. There's so many things you can do. But I want to say this. Look, it is okay to subsidize something in the country, but let the free market work. If rice is going to be sold for $40, you'd rather have $40 bag of rice in the country than not to have any rice at all. The reason why, though, people say anybody can order rice in the country, that's not true. The rice market has been heavily monopolized. This is what it would do. Something called the RPD. Under Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, it was most critical. It got relieved a little bit under President Weah, which is a good thing, where a lot more people are importing rice into the country. Why would you take a commodity as crucial as rice production or rice sale, and you give it to a few people? You got to go through all this craziness just to obtain permission to bring rice into the country. You talk about sovereignty, Mr. Gilman. If we do not listen to the American, the very small sovereignty we have left, we might lose it. We might lose it. The rice production in the country is a serious matter. You have to make concerted effort. If they have followed the PAPD, which I encourage people to read, think of all of us here, we read it. I must have read it 7 different times. That entire document. It has great policy in it, even though most of them were pissed and caught, but it has great policy in them. And no policy, if they were implemented the agricultural policy, we would be producing rice right now. President Weah is not there to produce solutions for the country. He's there for the fanfare of the office and not the responsibility that comes with the office. This is the issue we are facing. These quick fix solutions are not going to help Liberia. You gave 11 million. Do you know how much rest we consume on the databases in Liberia? The $11 million that's been given, that's only good for 4 months. 4 months that they bring rest into the country. That means we got to find another 11 million again. Where's the money going to come from? Mr. Eastman.
I want to mention that this rice subsidy we were doing in 1978, it was proposed that we cut off the rice subsidy, and that was it led to the demise of President Tolbert. The only time we should do any kind of food subsidy if it is for local farmers, not for the importation. We are for local farmers. Now, one thing has been observed here. We have proposed programs for private farmers to take advantage of and to produce more. We are seeing it's not working in any project. All the guys are project managers and whatnot here, including you. If you see a method is not working, you have to change your method. So what is not working? The way India turned their system around, they went into corporate farming, cooperative farming. You have to have several farms come together and you work with them. Number one. Another way is to invite a professional agriculture company and you get in partnership with them and you produce what you can eat. The theme should be eat what you grow and grow what you eat. Okay? So it's not working. The other day, President Weah at a meeting said, I allocated $10 million for your business people. And none of y'all have come back for it. The reality is Liberian entrepreneurs are not stepping up to the plate. Let's call a fact here. We're not stepping up. There are one or two people maybe like Dual who try, but on a general scale, the reason why Millie got that job because she was one of the heavy agriculture producers in the country. They figured to get a local person as an agriculture minister who understood the problems that local farmers had. She will be able to perform much better. That's why she's there today. But the fact of the matter, our entrepreneurs are not stepping up to the plate. We need a new method. And I propose you have to go in cooperation with known companies who are successfully at producing, provide them the land and the labor, and we will see different production. But this way of just saying, okay, private farmers, you'll come, it has not been working. Let's change the method.
Great. Ben, 1 minute, because we getting close to our time here. Go ahead.
Oh, me?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, yeah. Oh, okay. I want to just say two things. I mean, the two guys said a lot of good things, but Dwalu said something I want to add on. Dwalu said there's an appearance of people trying to seek quick fix, solutions. I would just add on to that. I would say the quick fix, that they are trying to seek is just evidence that they have no vision. All of us here today, we cannot pinpoint the agricultural strategy of the government of Liberia. Nobody knows what it is. Then to put the icing on the cake, the agriculture minister is an indictee. She was indicted for corruption. I'm not the one who made the LECC report. I'm just saying what's there. Then add on to that, the government has no defined agriculture program. Eastman talk about entrepreneurs. I would say that is a good point, but in cases like that, when the entrepreneurs are not there, the government has to provide leadership. There are government funds all over the place. The government has to provide leadership. You cannot say because nobody is trying to make farms. No. The government can initiate a government farm. They can do that.
Trust is another issue. Trust.
They have the resources. And let me tell you this: there was a workshop done, a few years ago, where this current agriculture minister interacted with farmers and some entrepreneurs, and they told her the problems that they were facing. They told her the problem. But that's what she did. She had consultation with them. She called it the dialogue. This is right here. She had meeting with the people, and after the meeting, nothing happened. And the stakeholders at the time, they gave her the problems that they faced that kind of impacted them. Their crops. They told her the problems they were facing. After that meeting, she have not gone back to them. So the government don't have vision. The government don't have a strategy for agriculture. Look at the budget. Agriculture received one of the lowest funding in the national budget. There's no strategy there. So we cannot blame the entrepreneurs. You see, here, government have program for farmers. They have initiative for farmers. They help farmers. The government has no program. So where would the entrepreneurs go? Game and myself talked about it yesterday. We have to literally go to the World Bank we have to literally go and find funding for ourselves. The government has to provide leadership. That's part of the social contract. The government has to lead. Thank you.
And ladies and gentlemen, one of the things that we said we were going to do was to stick with our time here to make sure that we come out here and do this within 30 minutes, hour and 30 minutes, and we'll do some closing. So we got a hold our end of the bargain here. But one of the things that I wanted to talk to Mr. Dualo, because he has some experience in this, is when I was in Liberia last year, I was at the Boulevard Hotel at a dinner, and the gentleman that was that was at the opposite end of my table was from the World Bank. And he came to look after a project called Move Monrovia. They wanted to see how they would decongest the traffic in Monrovia. And they wanted to look at the waterways, whether they could use the waterways to move Monrovia. And then talking from one thing to another, he said, Jerome, first of all, it can't happen because all the bridges that were built here, they are so archaic that we cannot even get a boat to go underneath either one of the bridges. They are not even considered bridges, according to him. He said, and then secondly, the waterways are so full, are so polluted, they would need dredging, serious dredging. Those are the two things. He said, finally, he says, I am here and we are putting out RFP, request for proposal for entrepreneurs. Then he gave me he didn't give me the name of the company or anything, but he just gave me the figure. There were 3 companies there that applied for 200,000. Everybody else was 50,000, 50,000, 50,000, 100,000. He said, this won't cut it. He said, the minimum contract I'm allowed to give her to Liberia is $5 million. And nobody has the ingenuity, the innovation to come up with a project that will cost minimum $5 million. So they are taking all the money. Can you imagine? So while you are talking here, when I listen to Mr. Dualo, when he's talking these grand things, that's what it's going to take. We're not talking about, the mom and pop business, that's fine. But we're talking about corporations here that will actually do serious investment.
Look, Mr. Gaiman, I appreciate you said that. Look, 2018, when CDC came to power, I wrote a proposal that I submitted to them. All the big boys, I flew to Liberia. We had a talk. The first year, the offer was to provide 200 permanent employment in Liberia. I was looking for around $3 million. I will come up with $1 million. They will come up with $3 million in 3 to 5 years to get the money back. This is a project on the larger scale, but there's a lot of everybody here on the show or everybody who's listening knows what I'm about to say. There's a lot of things that happen in Liberia, especially when you're going to go through government to do contract, especially somebody like me who are trying to remove the trash out of the city, process the trash, make rubber made in Liberia. Some of the stuff that are being requested by the government officials are unrealistic. This is not what an entrepreneur can do. Now, you can say, well, you can go directly back to the person. The government has, Benjamin is right. The government has to set the platform of credibility for entrepreneurs to believe that they can come to the environment and the resources, the investment are going to be protected. If people do not trust the system, you can bring all the money there and entice people. But let me tell you something. The reason why people are requesting for 50,000, 100,000, because their intent is not to do the job. They see that as the money they can get, free money, not to come from inside. Like what Mr. Eastman said. They realize the law's not going to be enforced. If I ask for 100,000 to give me, I can eat it. Nothing will come from inside. So instead that we don't have $5 million projects right now, look, this is where the government should come in. Come to the diaspora and advertise such projects you just announced. I can guarantee you the proposal will come out and people will be able to utilize that. But this is what a government official told me. Only Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. Dwalu, many of you will allow you to come to the country here. All that boy you know. The next thing you know, you want to run for president in the country. How will make you powerful? This is an idea, and they're not thinking that if Mr. Eastman comes and if Mr. Eastman employs even 20 people, this is progress. This is not just on President Weah. This has been true throughout. If you're not working in government, you're not supposed to be anybody in the country. This is lunacy. The government cannot build that society. It takes entrepreneurship. I'll give it to you guys.
So, ladies and gentlemen, this is where we are. I think there was a paper that we read, I think last week, everybody may have read it, maybe last month sometime, where the gentleman said 2011, he was in Liberia, and he went to do a business. He said, people think that only the ministers and the directors were asking for money. He said, that's true. He had to bribe. He said, but he found out that even the proposer, to take the proposal, when you take it to the office, for the proposal to get on the director's desk, you got to bribe the secretary who gets the paper, because if she doesn't present your paper, the director won't get it. And if you went to notarize a paper and you went to the notary person and you don't bribe that person, the paper is not going to be notarized. It won't even get to the secretary before it gets to the director. And you see where he's going, all the way down to wherever it is. So corruption is systemic. And I usually say, when we were in high school, we used to teach civic. They say government begins at home, in our homes, society, our homes. If you have your brother and your sisters, they are crooking you when you try to build your little house or buy your little land, and your own family members are crooking you. People don't go into government before they become corrupt. And I keep saying this. We are corrupt before we go into government, but now it's exacerbated by power, the authority, and the opportunity to grasp at once. But they are all corrupt. And then we all, and I included, we start circling around and protecting our own crooks. Like the gentleman who told me the last week, he said, I know America Connor, they say he was corrupt, he did this, but I blame it on George Weah because George Weah government, they didn't audit him, so let him go and run for the Senate position. Can you see the people who agree that this man did some bad things, but they say, well, if George Weah didn't audit the man, let the man go and let him go free. So this is where we are. Gentlemen, we are running out of time here. Let's go around the table. Mr. Ben, you want to say something? Go ahead. Then we'll go to our closing, and then
I mean, I will be short because I just want to say something to add to what you guys are saying. You see, with the thing about the rice thing too, one of the things I noticed, we have this subsidy now, and there was a news article last week. And it said that there is appearance of graft. That is the cash is kind of being shared out between officials of the state. They're getting kickback. They're giving subsidies, monies to their friends, all those kind of things. You see, guys, if we have to be honest about Liberia, we must be brave to tell our friends the truth. Going into next year, Liberians with integrity, that includes us here, we must stand up. We must be bold to tell our friends, even our friends, to tell them the truth. Because one thing I noticed about us Liberians, we don't want to offend people. Like we're saying on this shore, there is rampant corruption in Liberia. But the thing is, we know some of our friends, we are not even bold to tell them that, what you are doing is wrong and you have to stop. So with this thing about the rice subsidies, we can twist it and split hairs about it. It is just blatant kickbacks. They gave those things to their friends, and at the end of the evening, they get brown envelope back. So no problems are solved. The problem just persists because the problem is a source of money. It's a source of personal resources for them. In Liberia, most times they don't want it. They are interested in the problem persisting, because that's how they get monies. So, we have a state, and we know that rice is one of the key things in Liberia, and we have shortages and subsidy. This is not the first time, though. Even this year, this is not the first, maybe the fourth or fifth time this year. So where are we going? The problem continues to persist. Few people continue to make money out of it, and we get nothing. Last thing I wanted to before I leave that, because I have to leave, I would just round up and I just leave. We talked about the first thing, the UNGA assembly. I think from my standpoint, it was a waste of time. We don't need to send anybody here. We have an ambassador there. He or she can represent Liberia and send a detailed report. Number two, we talk about those Liberians who were arrested in South Korea. I want to say for now, it is an allegation. We trust that South Korean state has a competent court, and they will give this man, or they'll give those men a fair hearing. But for me, I think we should use this as a standpoint to kind of amend the code of conduct, so that those who go outside of Liberia to represent Liberia, they can have some kind of acceptable form of behavior.
But Ben,
we need a year from the audience.
If they should be allowed to run, I would say under our laws, there's nothing that stopping them from running. It is my hope that government launch an investigation as swift as possible, so that each man can either be cleared or found guilty, and then we will know whether they can run or not. The last thing we talk about.
My man was brought out of point.
Ben, you didn't mean to.
Ben, 1 minute. We will come back to you. You can finish the closing.
Okay, thank you, guys. Thank you. That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, for the audience.
Let's go to our comment, then we'll come back to closing.
Right. I see one comment here.
You read it.
Sam Wallow. He said,
"No, read what's on the screen."
Oh, okay. That's Edison Pajibo watching from Ghana. He hoped today's show will be one of decorum and not bitter politics. Edward Copa, I'm watching from Bonnersville, LPRC. I'm Akon Toure, I'm watching from Cyprus, CYCY. Ibrahim Sharif, I'm watching from Guinea Conakry. And Edison Pajibo, I disagree with the point that Liberia shouldn't attend the UNGA. Liberia, being one of the earliest founding members, should attend. Elvin Morris, you are right, Mr. Gaiman. Ansu hate President Weah with a passion. Alberto Nemo, what is Mr. Gaiman talking about? Those guys are stationed in London. They only attend the conference in SK. I talk about those diplomats.
Yeah, you saw
the next one. Christiana Weah, we're no occasions we're African. We were there before the so-called white men came. They don't charge they don't change for African. Why is African should charge for them? Oh, they don't change for Sam Wallow, the law was challenged. It is legal to marry anyone under the age. They we're talking about the girls and talk about having a harem of 13-year-olds. That law has been changed. In fact, that was one of the back talk against Topa that he agreed to make it official the age of consent 13 back in the day. Edison Pajibo, not much time should be spent on this topic of rape. The whole world is experiencing moral decadence at an epic level. Let us take the rape as one of those occurrences. This does not mean I support immorality. P. Morris Krumah, the issues you are pointing are directly related to conflict. Post-conflict development and reconstruction require a process that puts accountability, justice, and the rule of law to top. This is when we're talking about how our law was broken down during the wars. This is some of the things that should have been done to have people restore obeying the law. Stim Bonge, in Liberia, everyone knows everyone. Even the police pull someone over for a traffic violation, it's the minister's girlfriend or some higher up family member. Again, Stim Bonge, we can start to battle impunity by our head of state condemning and putting an end to friendship shields. That will be leading the way. Sam Wallow, there are currently 2 senators under sanctions, and the U.S. still has its resources in Liberia. This one alluding to the fact that I say they will pull it out, but there's been series of announcements since then that that show that they are about to do something, Sam. Morris Kroma, Gaiman, you don't know anything about how the country gets qualified for impact or this compact. Stop misinforming people. Fuller Bay Kroma, Mr. Gaiman, you are making some serious faulty analysis, bro. I'm not sure why this guy is defending. Liberia is mismanaged, and the worst of all, the court system is corrupted as well. Sam Wallow, let's hear from each panelist how they interpreted the positioning last week of the United States behind Liberia at the UNGA. And this is important. This was my first time. I grew up around the UN, okay, from a kid, 3 years old. And they put the United States right behind Liberia this day. The optics, as if we're the offspring of, but what he wants to know our individual views on that. Umoyu, entrepreneurs with good ideas and scalable projects can do a government bypass and go directly to organizations like the International Finance Company for financing. There are entrepreneurs in Liberia that have used this strategy. Moyu, thank you for that thing. That's what a lot of people are talking about now, bypassing government completely because of the red tapes and the kickbacks that they're solicited. Life of Lando, a lot of Liberians' problems can be solved if members of the government are upheld by the laws. Ben, you out of touch, bro. Governance is not the same as management. And he got a point. It's one thing, corporate law, like how we have it here. But definitely, I agree with you, Ben. Impunity can only be solved by punishment. That's the only way to discourage impunity. Fullerby Kroma, also in Bon County a little year ago, 2 young boys of the Mandingo tribe were kidnapped and taken to the Poro Bush, initiated by mutilating or marked their backs and front. Government of Liberia did nothing up until now. Ajibo, we have a member of the House of Representatives insulting the president openly. The president, no matter what, embodies the soul and spirit of that nation. We should condemn all evil, no matter our politics, our political colors. Stim Bonge, we can start by battle impunity by head of state and condemning and putting an end to friendship shields. And Sonny Tugbe, George Weber criminalized the whole country and not a thing is working. Watching from New Jersey, USA. That's it for the comments. Okay. So what do you think? What are the optics of seeing the UN, the US right behind them in Liberia?
For me, I didn't think too much of it, but I just want to respond to the brother who said I hate President Weah. Let me tell you this. I don't hate President Weah. I love Liberia way more. They're not even in the same category. Sometimes you use the word hate and jealousy too lightly, gentlemen. When we talk about our country, we just want the best for Liberia. President Weah will come and go. Liberia remains permanently. So if we don't protect we don't protect Liberia, we cannot love President Weah. Liberia must survive or to move forward. The Americans, I don't know. The only thing I can conclude from that is listen, just stand behind your small child. And you'll be advising there. The only time they get to be advising, you'll put right behind Liberia so they can put pressure on it. I don't know. But I don't think anything of it. I just believe they're just sitting arrangement ready.
Great. Mr. Dualo, why you got a mic? Go ahead and do your closing.
I want to say this. At the end of the day, the reason why I love platforms like Focus on Liberia and all the other platforms out there that are promoting Liberian issue, back in the day, we never had these. We didn't talk. Look, I think it was Mr. Gaiman that said, Mr. Eastman the last time on the show, he said, that was Mr. Gaiman. He said, if we had these kind of shows, maybe we would have avoided a civil war. Jawing is better for Liberia than AK-47 or people buying Kalashnikovs and going back into the jungles of Liberia. We talk not out of hate. We talk for extreme love for our country. The only way we can solve some of these problems. And I challenge young people every single day. I got a show that's being relayed in Liberia now. And the intent of that show is to let them know, listen, your country has to change with your involvement. We have to push the issue, not for hate, but for total inclusion of all of us so we can develop. Because we are the least, because we're not applying ourselves. What Mr. Eastman just said, it hurts my heart that we're leaving money on the table when we could be utilizing that money to develop the country, And, government got to take the lead in some fashion. When the government comes in and says, listen, a multinational corporation comes to the country, is giving out money, we'll set up a platform, go to the diaspora. Listen, you want to open a shoe factory in Luba County, we can hook you up with these guys. We have to find a way to grow our society. All of us. And once again, I want to say thank you to the audience.
Mr. Fennell? Ben Fennell.
Fennell already went.
Oh, yeah. Well, guys, I think I've already done mine. I just want to say thank you to all of you guys, and I hope to interact with you guys sometime next time. But Liberia is all we have, and thank you for inviting me. And I think we had a great discussion today. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Eastman.
Yeah, I will be real quick, Brother Gaiman. Listen, if the way we've been doing things has not been working, of course we heard this as a famous quote from Mr. Cummings, but Mr. Cummings got in bed with some people that compromise his whole ethics. So we kind of wonder what. But actually, when we're doing things and it's not working, we have to come up with a better way. There's no reason why after $1 billion worth of investment in LEC, and we don't see even half of the city is being lit up. There's something wrong. We're doing it the wrong way. This kickbacks, you can't push any people in the offices. I understand, my people, this is how we've been doing it. This is how we've been getting our little money, but it cannot work. The country cannot function like that. We have to, if we want to change our circumstance, stop pointing finger at Weah. Stop pointing finger at this person, that. We have to be part of that change. We can't continue it. And of course, that will mean changing some people who are in authorities as well, like your legislature, those ones who are not trying to make a change, who like the way things are and running it the same. Well, the buck stops with us. We have to be the change.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Mr. Dualo, as usual, insight. Mr. Eastman, thank you very much. Mr. Ben Fanier, thank you very much. One of the things that I think we need to look at when I listened, and it's good that Mr. Moyu called, because I have benefited a lot from Joe. He's a consultant. Talk to me, talk to most of the folks that I have taken to Liberia. And most of the successes that we have had, we have never even gone through government. Those who actually get into trouble are those who want to vie for those major contracts from the government. Then you in their territory. But when the first kid that Joe introduced me to was this kid that was making the call, I think Palm Liberia, that was using the palm kernel and all those shells and all of that. This kid came up with an ingenious idea with our government. And this kid is one of the largest now in the country. This other kid called Armstrong Jabba, he's doing farming and he's looking forward for few things because he wants to mechanize and a little bit beyond his control, and they are doing the best they can. And I have gone and done my small farm, never got to see any government, never have to see any government. So usually, if you need major contracts from the government, those kickbacks are away. And I heard this, I'm not sure, and like I said, this is Roma now. I think Dualo, if you heard it too, or Mr. Eastman, we heard that every bag of rice that come in the country, from time immemorial, either $1 or $2 goes to the president. That's why we heard when Ellen was there. And I have no reason to believe that has changed under George Weah. That's my president. I support him. But again, I'm saying these are Roma. We heard the reason why they have such a monopoly on the importation rice is that a certain percentage of every bag of rice that comes in the country, the president gets a cut. The vice president get a cut. All the powerful people get a cut. 50 cents here, 50 cents there. We heard that. I don't know whether it's true. If these things are true, then this government, if you came in to make change and your name is changed, you have change attached to your name. We have to mitigate some of these things. For the local folks, I went online to find out how many tons of rice do we need in Liberia to survive? 2021, Liberia imported 300,000 megatons of rice. That's like the third in the entire Africa. So what I'm saying here is it will take a lot of people producing rice to come up with 300 megatons of rice.
Yeah.
So yes, when we were young, they had LPMC, where all our old folks used to bring their coffee, cocoa to the warehouse, sell it cheap, and then they turn around. That's what it's going to take. We have to have a cooperative where everybody who farms bring their rice, forget about it, bring not just your rice, your banana, your plantain, bring it, we'll buy it from you, and then we would either reprocess it or ship it. In that way, you buy by volume. I don't have to let my rice or my banana get rotten. I know when it reaches a certain stage, I'll take it down to Buchanan, dump it on them, they process it, and then they look about the storage and all of that. That's why it's going to take, but we need a lot of rice. 300 megaton is a lot of rice. It's so much. For you to know what I'm talking about, Liberia's importation of rice is so huge that one country cannot even handle that order. So they're using India, I think Pakistan, the United States, and somewhere else. 4 countries. That's how much 300,000 megaton is. So yes, there is room. And with the coming of feed yourself or feed the future that is coming. Someone like Dualo and Eastman, this is our time to say we can't wait until Feed the Future gets on the ground. We should be on the ground, have our proposals ready, and when they hit the ground, we're ready to go and tap into that. But this is the future agriculture. They talk about $3 billion coming Liberia's way. We have to be ready. If not, the same Lebanese, the same Indians, the folks that we despise now, they will tap into that. So this is where we are. This is not political. It's not partisan. This is Liberia here. If it's right for Liberia, it's right for everybody. But we have to fight this impunity thing. Our judicial system is terrible. It's terrible. I had to buy my own land twice from the same people. Purchase the land, they pay for it, had it probated, then had to go back and pay to the same family because the older brother said, even though the guy who sold the land was the custodian and the rightful person, but he was entitled, he didn't get part of that money. So I had to go and pay the same amount to the second family with nothing to do. So ladies and gentlemen, this is where we are. Thank you for your comments. We are all Liberians. It doesn't matter where you come from. We are doing this for the best. And don't think that Douala is wrong because when Ellie was in power, we were sitting here criticizing her too. And when Joe will leave, we're going to come right back here and do the same thing. So it has nothing to do with hate or you don't dislike this person. You don't like their policy. You have to do this. That's what oppositions do. Opposition never comes out here and bring the pom-pom and say, oh, the guy is doing. That's not their job. Their job is to take power. That's what we did. We got it. Somebody else wanted it. And when somebody else takes it, we're going to do the same thing. So ladies and gentlemen, do it for Liberia. Don't do it for your party. Don't do it for your friend. Don't do it for your family. Let's do it for Liberia. Until then, we see you next Sunday, same time, same dial. As we always said, we are all Liberian no matter what. Thank you very much.
We are Liberian.